it's the parties are talking about it, stakeholders are debating that the single day elections, and it got heated. A few days ago, when that proposal by the House of Reps to amend the Constitution to mandate the independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to conduct presidential, governorship, National Assembly, State Assembly, and local government elections on the same day came up. And stakeholders, including CSOs, parties, academics, analysts, and others, have continued to express divergent views on these ideas. And the proponents, they are arguing that holding all elections in one day will cut cost and limit result manipulation. But then critics are saying that Nigeria's peculiar electoral challenges make such an arrangement impractical and potentially problematic. We look into that in the course of the program. We have with us at this time a man with his team in which they have observed, they have monitored elections for years, different cycles, even globally. Look into this conversation with us to say what are the pros and the cons. Are there gains? Are there red lines? How feasible is it for Nigeria to have, even when the proponents are saying we will cut costs and then manipulations will be reduced? We have with us this morning the executive director of Kimpa Development Initiative, an election monitoring group, among many other things that they do, Mr. Bukola Idowu. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here this morning.
It's always a pleasure to talk about, these issues with you, because we are talking about somebody who knows air and good work you are doing at KDI, you and your team as well. Now,
thank you.
You heard me, and I'm sure, not that you heard me, you have been part of this conversation. Let's start with, for the proponents, they are talking about cost, which is a huge factor in Nigeria, and they are talking about the manipulations involved in election will be reduced if we have it in one day. What do you say to that?
Yes, just like you said in your introduction, I think both have the advantages and disadvantages. But one of the things we have to look at is that there is no system that doesn't have its advantage and its disadvantages. So at the end of the day, we tend to go with the one with less risk and with the one with less disadvantage. And that is what we have, everywhere all over the world, when it comes to choice, that is what we have been doing. So if you look at the present electoral system we are practicing in Nigeria, which is called the first past the post system, is also a system that have disadvantage and have advantages. And at the end of the day, Nigeria decided to sit with it. So we decide not to go in the aspect of representative electoral system. We decided to pick first past the post. So, and because we consider the advantage or the disadvantage. And then some people are also talking about when it comes to the form of government that we should look, some people are saying, well, let's go back to parliamentary. It has less disadvantages. It cost effective. So what I'm trying to say as my foundational introduction is that every system have the advantage and disadvantage. However, when you come to the single day, conducting election on the single day, the advantages are more, if you ask me, than the disadvantages. And that is just one of the things we need to look at. And again, because of the peculiarity of the Nigerian system, this is very, very important that we look at it critically to have this particular system to conduct our election on a single day. Now, but if you look at it, people have talked about the cost, which is good. If you look at, I look at 2015. Report of INEC from Jega. After INEC conducted 2015 general election, we saw that the amount that the INEC used in conducting that election was huge, and we are talking about in essence of like about 150 to 160 billion naira to conduct in 2015. Then you come to 2019, it moved into around 300 billion. And then in 2023, we are talking about the excess of 400 billion to conduct that election. So just put your maths together. What are we going to be spending in 2027? And this is one of the things that people will tell you that, look, we don't think we can sustain this democracy because the people that want to just be mischievous, we tell you the amount you are spending on the election. Just election alone is over, probably over 400 billion. And this is just the statutory allocation from the federal government. We've not talked about, you know, INEC is also empowered to source for money, and that is why, international agencies support them, you know, to get money. And then I can tell you in 2023, the U.S. government spent over $10 million on our election. There is EU, there is Canada, there is UNDP. There are other bilateral institutions that spend money. A lot of embassies also spend money to support our electoral system. If you put everything together, your guess is as good as mine. You tell you, like, look, this is a lot of expenses. And then when you now talk about this cost, because most of the things you deploy twice in our election. So you deploy for the federal election come February, then you deploy for the state election come March, as it was done in 2023. So let's make it practical. So you are going to deploy security agencies twice. That is number one. You are going to deploy ad hoc officials twice. Then you are going to also deploy logistic twice. Then the most important of it, you are going to lock the country down twice. And then what that means is that, don't forget, anytime you lock the country down, you can imagine the amount of money Nigerians lose every time the country is locked down. So this, when you look at it in terms of cost, is huge. And that is why someone like me will support us conducting our election on a single day.
All right, Mr. Idowu. Well said. You've talked about cost. Before now, I'd like us to look at it one after the other. Thankfully, you've started with cost. Before we move to the next one, let's note, it is worthy of note that for now, what we have is elections being conducted, the presidential and national assembly the same day. Then we have the governorship elections and state houses of assembly the same day. Then we also have local government elections conducted the same on another day by the state electoral bodies, bodies, as we call them. I don't want to call them electoral commissions, absolutely. So that's what we've been practicing now. So ideally, we've been having 3 different elections in Nigeria. For the local government, the 774 of them conducted at different times in different states. Now, some proponents, it has been proposed that we should have a single-day election that will bring all of them together. So what it simply means is that we'll be having like 3 more ballot boxes on the same day. That's having the presidential, for the presidential election. Then, of course, the National Assembly, which is split into the Senate and the House of Reps. Then we have for the states, you have the governorship, and of course, the state houses of assembly, making 5, and of course, local government. So we'll be having a total of like 6 ballot boxes on the same day. Let's take this aspect, Mr. Idowu. Let's talk about security. Some have argued that if we have elections, single-day elections in Nigeria, that there will be security concerns. How do you analyze that? Because it is still the same election. It is still the security personnel that will be deployed, whether you are voting for just the presidential or the governorship or the local government. So how exactly does that argument hold? If people say there will be security concerns if we have all the elections in one day, how do you analyze that? Does it really have any effect? Does it change anything? Because an election is an election. We are just having a couple more ballot boxes on that day.
Practically, I think that argument doesn't really hold water. It's just like saying that INEC is going to deploy more if you have it on a single day. No, it's still the same. It's still the same set of people. It's still the same security. So think about it. Our election in February, we had 26% voter turnout for the presidential election, 26%. And by the time you got into the state election for governorship all over, the number declined. So, and which means that, look, probably, what it means is that probably we will have had election that will have been, the police will have, on the overall, we just police 26% of the voter turnout. And that should not be a security challenge. And that is just the truth we need to face, because you deploy them just once and the same set of people. So look, you don't have different set of people coming to vote for president and then another set of people coming to vote for the governors. It's still the same set of people. It's still the same registered voter. So we can plan it. So when people are saying there are going to be security concern, no, there is not going to be security concern. It's not like, okay, different set of people, for instance now, when you do the maths, in the governorship election, I think we have like around 20% turnout if you take the average across the 26 states that have governorship election in 2023. You know, the rest are off circle. Now, just like that is like about 20%. Now, the same 20% are also on the register. The same 20% voted for the president that had 26%. So it is not that you are going to have 20% voter turnout for governorship and add it together with 26% that now give us 46%. No, that is not what we are dealing with. Absolutely. You are dealing with the same set of people that come out. And one of the things you also need to understand is that if you have it the same day, it's also going to help voter turnout. Look at what I just said, because at the end of the day, the people that came out for presidential election, reduced when you got to the governorship election. So then you are likely going to have that increase in voter turnout. So one of the things we need to look at is that it's going to be single deployment. And then the fatigue is not also there. Don't forget, you had election on February 23rd or thereabouts. And then after that election, the security agencies has to deal with post-election conflicts of that February 2023. And before they could open and close their eyes, then the governorship is already there. So the fatigue is already there. So they can deploy this at once and have it in February. And so I don't think it's going to be a burden on the security operatives.
Absolutely.
And that is the truth.
All right. So it doesn't really hold water to say there will be security challenges if we hold them the same day. And you've just linked your answer. You've linked your answer to the second question I was going to ask, which is that of voter apathy. So those who are arguing for the elections to be held the same day are saying that it will actually help reduce voter apathy in Nigeria. A lot of people come out to vote, like you've also alluded to that, for the presidential election. But when it comes to the other one, the governorship elections, they don't turn out. So do you see it as a plus when we have all the elections the same day? Because if we have more people turning out to cast their votes for the presidential election and there's a decline going into the governorship election, it simply means that people are getting tired. Some people are getting disinterested. So do you actually see it as a plus? Holding the elections the same day, do you see it curbing or helping to reduce voter apathy in Nigeria? And why do you think so?
So this is not new. This is not new. Ghana here is doing it. And just like about 2 weeks ago, we received a delegation in our office, and then it's also comprised of Ghanaian, some of the Ghanaian electoral officers, and they visited, and then while we were discussing, they said the election before this, just to put this in perspective, to say this is not new. Now, the election before the last election they did in December, they had like 79% voter turnout. 79%. It was as if I've not had that
79.
79. Yes, 79. So, and now the last election in December that they have around 60 something, I think maybe around 65%, 65%, which means it was a decline. As I am talking to you, it has become a worrisome situation in Ghana to say, look, and that is what they are saying. That is one of the reasons they even came to also ask questions to say, what can they do? So what am I trying to say is that, look, they dropped from 79 to around 64. It has become a concern to them. So I will come back. I will put that on the parking lot and come back. But this is where I'm going. Ghana, on its own, they conduct all their election on a single day. The only difference is that they have early voting. early voting, which also help. And don't forget, in the National Assembly now, there is a bill on early voting that if it's get through, then it's going to help. So people might think, oh, everybody is going to troop out at the same time. But you see, by the time you introduce early voting, it's going to reduce the number you are likely going to deal with on the election day. That is number one. And this early voting is very, very important because you have election workers, you have police, the military, the civil defense, the custom, all manners of, all our security agencies, including yourself, media. Most times you don't go to vote. So when you have early voting, then this number has been taken out. And the next thing we are now going to have is going to be on election day. And then again, don't forget that people, they just want to go through the process once instead of going, we come for president and then we are coming for the governorship and then another day. And then people are already also thinking about what to eat. I don't know if you have seen the statistics that shows that most Nigerians, I think over 60% of Nigerians probably entrepreneur, and they live on daily income. So let me put it that way. They live on daily income. Go and look at our registered voter. You see artisan in terms of classification. You see artisan, you see self-employed. Many of them have the bulk of our registered voter. Then you now begin to see civil servant and the rest. Now, what does that mean is that you have to also consider these people. You can't lock the country down twice and then they begin to lose income. And this is why, and let me tell you also, research has also shown, this is the current research I'm telling you, research has also shown that, look, people tend also to sell their vote to make amend for the money they are losing that day. You know? And so this is a web. So why not let's get this thing done once, you deploy once, you deploy your resources once, and then it's cost effective because the same ballot boxes you are going to transport twice is being transported once. Right. And then you lock the country once. And then now, how was it done in Ghana? Then, like I said, they had the election. So people are given paper, and then you go and drop in the boxes, even at the point of sorting. All the ballot paper are color-coded. So the ballot for our president, if it's yellow, let me put it that way, and the one for governor, if it is blue. So if they come into the presidential box, by the time they are sorting, and they see blue instead of yellow, they pick it out and put it in the right box, which means this is for governor. It's not supposed to be there. This is still the same process of sorting. And I know the fear of many people is that they are like, oh, okay, if you do it on one day, in one day, are we likely going to have the result as fast as possible? In fact, some of us are the proponent. We are part of the people telling INEC, why are you rushing to declare results? Because there is nowhere in the law, both constitution, your guideline, INEC guideline, and the Electoral Act that says result must be declared within 24 hours. And that is why, because we are in a hurry to declare results, we don't really do administrative checks into those results we are declaring. At the end of the day, people trunk to court. Because the moment you declare, you don't want to go back and say, no, you are taking it back. Then people now trunk to court. And that is why this. So at the end of the day, if you are able to do a thorough job and have a good election, then the burden on the court will reduce. And then we have our election less expensive and everybody moves on.
All right. So much to really talk about, especially these matter. And, there have been reactions, from parties and politicians as well on these matter. And that's very key because they are part of the stakeholders. And, when the National Director of Publicity for APC, that's Bala Ibrahim, was reached by Daily Trust, there's a report from the Daily Trust, and he spoke on the matter in his personal capacity, by the way. He said one major concern about same-day polls was security. And he said the number of police personnel in the country is insufficient to be deployed for such a large-scale exercise, stressing that overstretched manpower will pose serious challenges on election day. He said he has no objection to that happening because it had happened before in the Second Republic, but the issue is a problem of manpower. Mr. Idowu, I would take that up with you, but I understand we have a politician, with us right now via phone call. Mr. Steve Otaloro is the Director of Media and Publicity for the Ondo APC. He joins us now. Good morning, Mr. Otaloro.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Good to have you again. It's been a while.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard us. You are abreast of this conversation about having single elections in Nigeria. The proponents are talking about cost. They are talking about, reducing manipulations, and let's have everything done in one day instead of having it staggered as we currently have. What's your take on that?
Well, whatever I'm saying here might just be personal. The way I feel we are still stalling it as a political party. But I think it will be more difficult. You will be bringing in more manipulations if we have to do the whole thing one day. It will be pretty difficult, extremely difficult.
Mr. Otaloro, can you please speak up a bit?
Okay, I said it will be a little bit difficult if we have to do the entire elections in one day. It will be pretty difficult. The proponent of this one-day election, I wonder what's the merit behind it. Because if you look at it, even elections that we conduct in a day, we are still finding it difficult to get the results out on time. Ondo State, for instance, we have a rugged terrain. In the riverine area, before you could even get ballots to those end, it takes several hours. And getting it out of those difficult terrains goes into, there's no way we could conduct election that will likely release the result in the following day. It's always difficult in a state like this. And I believe it's the same thing across several other states in Nigeria. Nigeria with over 230 million people. There's no way you could conduct an election in a day.
Mr. Otaloro.
Even in the United States of America, for instance, they spread it over a 1 week. That is the model we should be looking at, in which by they will make it seamless. We could drive this thing with technology. We could even drive it for 1 week, allow people to vote. You could go to your office and still come back and vote, or vote somewhere within your offices where you work. But because we don't have to declare public holiday because we want to vote, these are the areas we think we should be looking at instead of making the whole election. It would be so cumbersome to log up the whole election in one day. I believe it will bring about thuggery. It will bring about serious manipulations. It will be difficult. Documentations and everything will be difficult by these electoral officers to get it done. So I will propose a day. Instead of that, I would rather propose we should incorporate technology to drive this election, whereby you could vote. Most of the elites could vote within the confines of their room. We could make it a 1 week situation whereby I could decide to vote on Monday, I could decide to vote on Tuesday. A situation whereby we have to.
Mr. Otaloro, if
everybody has to go to the ballot box. It's more or less.
If you can hear me,
making the whole system.
All right. We talked about. Mr. Otaloro,
can
you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
All right. We talked about manipulations and thuggery and all of those things. It's quite interesting because Nigerians would like to know why. Because if you're having state elections on presidential election or, whatever being the case on one day, and you still want to have the other ones at the other date, the same thuggery, the same manipulation, the same evil-minded either politicians or corrupt officials or compromised security agencies are still the one that will do that. So imagine we have a presidential election, elections into gubernatorial positions, the House of Assemblies. If there will be thuggery, there will be thuggery. Why do you think the thuggery will be more if it is held in one day? Why do you think the manipulations will be much if it's held in one day? Why?
Okay, take a look at the off-cycle election, for instance,
right,
whereby a few states or a state or two will be having election. If you look at the way those elections are conducted, it's always devoid of violence, manipulations most time, because the security apparatus that will be deployed to that state will be so heavy that they will take care of every logistics involved. But the situation whereby you are having general election, presidential Senate, House of Representatives, for instance, there are little violence involved. There are. I won't dispute it. But when you now put that of the governor and the local government together, you see, you are making use of logistics that are involved with the presidential election and that of the governorship election to be combined for one day. And everybody knows that the result that comes out that day will determine their fate within the next 4 years. It will be so cumbersome. It will be so. They will deploy a lot of means to rigging such election.
Sorry to cut in there. When you spoke, you talked about it being difficult in terms of logistics. You also mentioned, you cited the case of terrain, that some terrains are difficult and all that. But your explanation quite negates itself in a way. And here's what I mean. If you say it will be difficult because some places have, bad terrain, moving ballot boxes and all that, so don't you think in that case it will be better to just have the elections conducted on a single day? Here's my point. If the terrains are difficult, here's my point, Mr. Otadoro. If the terrains are difficult, hold on,
on the surface.
Yes, let me land.
You see,
if the terrains are difficult, it means you have to transport materials, you have to transport people, ballot boxes, sensitive materials more than once to those places. So why not have them the same day? It's just having just about 3 more ballot boxes the same day. You also talked about security. If you are conducting on separate days, don't you think, Mr. Tori, don't you think you'll be spending more? You'll be transporting those materials twice? You'll be deploying security personnel twice? So from your explanation, don't you think it's quite easier when we just, harmonize the whole thing and have them the same day?
I don't think so. We've been involved in this election for quite some time now. And even from the point of view of a political party, we know what it involves in conducting one election. Not to talk of putting the whole thing together on the same day. And it will even confuse the electorates. How many ballot papers will you give to them?
Just 6. It should be just 6.
A country where we have a greater number of illiterates. So if you want the integrity of the election, we shouldn't compromise it in any way by confusing the electorate. The fulcrum of every democracy is the election. If we can't get it right, it will be very difficult to elect the right people.
Mr. Otadoro, sorry to cut in. Are you saying Nigerians cannot comprehend it when we have all the elections in one day, and a place like Ghana, they are doing it in Ghana? You are saying to be cumbersome. So if you have 6 ballot papers and they are color-coded, are you saying Nigerians cannot comprehend that?
At any point in time, what's the population of Ghana, for instance? At any given time, Ghana conducts, hardly will you have 6 million, the whole entire country. So, and if you split that into all the constituency, how many are we looking at? So we shouldn't compare ourselves with countries like Ghana. But for God's sake, democracies like United States of America, I just told you, in United States of America, elections take more than 1 week. Early voters, even in some states, more than 1 month. So why can't we look at that model and think of implementing it than comparing ourselves with some neighboring countries, smaller neighboring countries, that the number of votes, even in some countries, up to 3 million. A state will produce more than 3 million. For instance, we have more than 4-point-something million electorate in those states.
Yeah, early voting. Sorry, Mr. Atta, early voting does not stop us from having the whole thing simultaneously. We can still have them simultaneously and still have early voting.
It does. Look at it from this perspective. I told you, how will you, the boxes, number of ballot papers will you be giving to electorates? Except you want to confuse them to just vote for whichever party comes across. Yeah, it will be difficult. And for instances, I might decide to vote for a different president from a different political party than that of the governor, and even the local government elections. It doesn't mean I have to vote for the same party all through. If you're making it that way, that means you are encouraging rigging, in which a situation whereby people will just have to vote for a particular party throughout.
All right,
let's be realistic. It's good on the surface,
right?
But putting it into practical is very difficult. I'm telling you, we've been involved in election in this country for quite some time now, and we know what it involves. It will be pretty difficult.
I hope you heard. I really hope, Mr. Tolu, that you heard the explanation of Mr. Idowu, who is actually an election observer. He's been into this
Well,
for
I
so
heard
many...
part of the explanation, not all.
So it's not as difficult as you think, and I'm sure you still hear from him when he gives his own view.
I think, Mr. Otaloro, and that's why it's very interesting that we have politicians like yourself of note and experience that have walked through the system, and you are still actively involved because you are a chieftain of the APC in Ondo State. You know, you have said it can be cumbersome, but, you know, we are due for a break right now. But I think it's only right that Mr. Bukola Idowu, are you still with us, sir?
I am here.
If it's possible in a minute or two, you respond to some of these concerns raised by a politician, because you are an observer. He is the politician. He's the one who has been involved. How do you address some of those concerns before we go on a break quickly?
So I think number one, for the politicians too, is going to be cheaper for them because they deployed their agents once. Apologies for that. I think the power is off. Yeah. I think it's easier for them to, because they deploy their agent once, and that would be very helpful for them. Number two is that one of the things you need to look at is because, for instance, in Ondo State, you have difficult terrain, that is right. But the election materials get to those places, yes. Does it take 3 days to get to the places? No. So what we are saying now is that if you have difficult terrain in the riverine area, so what does that mean? Election material are taken to those places once. So instead of making it twice, instead of taking it to the places twice, you know, you take it once. And let me tell you, the other thing is this. Politicians have also said, no, it will confuse Nigerians. No, it's not going to confuse Nigerians. When people say that kind of narrative, there is a way it's making Nigerian voters as if they are they are not literate to vote. No, it is not. And don't also forget, it's the responsibility of the political party to sensitize also their members on the correct way of voting. And lastly, one of the things I would like to say on this is this. You see, one of the things this is likely going to cause, and don't forget, when I was speaking the other time, I talked about the early voting. Early voting will reduce this burden. And at the same time, if there is not going to be an increase in, or you are not stretching the security, you are not stretching everybody. Nigeria as of today have 176,000 polling units. 176,000 polling units. Conducting an election in a day is not increasing the number of polling units, which the security agencies have been deploying to effectively since 2015. Since 2015. Then again, one of the things you also need to look at in terms of manipulation is this. Have you noticed a pattern in our election that, look, the moment you conduct the first election in February for president and the State House of Assembly, governorship election tend to follow the same pattern, because some states, what they go back to to campaign with is that, oh, our state should not be at variance with the party at the national. No, with this we are not. Everybody is going to be by choice. It's not going to be, no, this is the person I want as a governor, but because his party is not at the national level, then let's go for the national level. No, people will be able to exercise their choice. Right. So it's not going to be following a single pattern, because everybody goes to the poll and then the election are being conducted in a single day. Election conducted in a single day. So, and that is one thing that the benefit you are likely going to also get from this.
All right, gentlemen, Mr. Bukola Idowu and Mr. Steve Otaloro, please hang in there.
Can I make some few comments on what you said?
We'll start from there from you. Please hold that thought. We are due for a break right now, Mr. Otaloro. Of course, we still have some time to discuss that, but that will be after now. We'll go on this quick break. When we come back, we further the conversation. It's still Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, and we are live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television NG, and also on StarTimes DTT channel 190. Stay with us.